So Liz, thanks for joining me. We had a fundraiser a few weeks back with Good Buzz. Good Buzz does both content and events in order to do fundraising for nonprofits, for other nonprofits. Good Buzz is part of Giving Forward, and we do cause marketing powered content, and we do unusual events. And so this event was a little bit unusual in that we had one of our sponsors said, why don't we let our corporate philanthropy be spread out among nonprofits based on the votes to attendees to a free comedy event. And so we had our free comedy event, and each of the attendees got to vote, and you had enough attendees that you ended up sort of on the radar as one of the nonprofits that had over $100 worth of distribution, because it was spread out. You know, there were like a few biggies, and then there was a lot of really small. We'll be spending a bunch of time cutting very small checks or doing a bunch of distributions. But Rosehaven was apparently popular with a bunch of folks. You had 10 people, which ended up being $135.50, which I'll be putting through via credit card shortly. But you know, I think it's important for your constituents and those other folks who end up seeing this, understanding sort of what you're doing with donations in general, and how you've had to change over the last year with the pandemic. Sort of, you know, is what you do with donations different, or is it basically the same as it was a year ago? So explain what you do, and sort of maybe explain a little bit how it's changed in the last year.
Sure. So yeah, my name is Liz and I'm the development director at Rosehaven, and we are the only day shelter and community center in Portland serving women, children, and folks who are marginalized by their gender. So we serve all women. That includes trans and non-binary people. And you know, pre-COVID, we really were a community center in all senses of the word. We kind of had one common room that was like the communal living room, dining area, you know, where folks come together, have conversation, get a meal, you know, and wait for, you know, different services. We offer on-site advocacy support, essential supplies like clothing, hygiene, access to restrooms and showers, access to a safe place to get mail, you know, computer and device charging access. And so prior to the pandemic, you know, we were hosting all sorts of classes and activities indoors. That said, we are currently operating out of a church basement. So once the shelter in place orders and the social distancing protocols kicked in, that really made our work hard, because it's literally impossible to socially distance in our tiny church basement. Just to give you an idea of the scope of work, we're serving about anywhere from 100 to 120 guests a day, and about 3,500 women and children in 2019. So then 2020 happened, and unfortunately we had to push the majority of our services outdoors. So for the last year, we've been hustling every day, you know, dragging tables and tents outside. So that's where the supply distribution is happening. So right now, essentially, we're operating from 3 doors. So the front door is where folks can line up for essential supplies, things like clean clothing, hygiene kits, you know, diapers, wipes, kind of all those things you can't buy with food stamps. Unfortunately, for more and more folks, they're also in need of things like tents, tarps, sleeping bags, because all the shelters were already full, and then COVID happened and they cut the shelter capacity in half so they could space people out. And then so then you go around the corner, and the other access point is where we serve meals. So we serve breakfast and lunch out of another door. And then around the corner is where our fellowship hall is. And that's where folks actually do get an opportunity to come indoors. They can sign up for a shower. They can come in and use the restroom, which we disinfect between every use. And that's also where they can sign up to chat with a social worker one-on-one. So those meetings are happening indoors. But you know, some of our guests, literally the only time they've been inside in the past year is to use the restroom at Rosehaven. And so that's been really hard to see. So essentially over the past year, we've really had to pivot our services and focus on our most vulnerable guests and really focusing on those survival needs. So all of the more fun stuff like the knitting classes and the beading classes and computer lab and, you know, resume support classes, all of those are on hold right now. I will say that we have some really exciting news. We just signed the lease on our new facility.
Oh,
So we are going to be
congratulations.
moving to a larger space and be able to get our folks back inside again. So we hope to be in the new space in 2022. And so this donation couldn't come at a better time because we are currently fundraising to renovate the new space and turn what was formerly a coffee shop into a trauma-informed shelter space. So we're really, really excited about this partnership and can't thank you enough. We really have a very, very modest budget. If you take the number of people that we served in 2019 and you divided that by our annual budget, the number you get is like $250. So really, to serve a woman or child for an entire year at Rosehaven, it only costs a couple $100. So truly, this makes a difference. Obviously, we need it more than ever because it's going to cost us a lot to, we're paying rent in two different places right now, and then we haven't even started the construction, but good stuff is on the horizon.
Well, that's great to hear how efficient you are. Is part of that efficiency because you get a lot of in-kind product donations as well as cash? Is that part of the model?
It's so true. Yeah, that's how it works. So right now, from 9 to noon, we're open for shelter services. And then from 1 to 4 is where we accept donations. And so really, yeah, I mean, if folks weren't out there collecting things like, clean underwear and pads and tampons and diapers and wipes and, all of those things you need, coats, we wouldn't be able to keep it going. So that in-kind support is what is able to cover the majority of our supply distribution. And then the majority of our cash donations go towards paying our staff to be there, paying our rent. We do offer financial assistance for folks. So things like utility assistance, rental applications, things as it relates to employment. So if you need a uniform for work or specific things like that, it's fairly modest financial support, and we never do a direct distribution to a guest. It would always be, we'd write the check to whoever, it was that you were working with, if it's, the gas bill or whatever, things like that. But yeah, that's kind of how we're doing it these days. So thank you so much for the support.
Oh, it's a wonderful story, and it's always good to hear back from organizations exactly what the dollars translate into. And so I'm
Yeah.
glad you did that math to sort of show the level of impact that every dollar brings. We've got some other events coming up pretty soon. We don't have corporate sponsors for the next one we're doing in 2 weeks, or a week and a half. That one's we're doing the after party for the World Happiness Foundation. So the 20th of March was designated by the UN as World Happiness Day. And so a group came together and formed a foundation to basically teach people how to be more happy. And so they have a big 6-day fest, which is, of course, virtual this year. And they asked us to produce the after party, a virtual after party. So on the 18th, we're doing a comedy event again, same MC that did the Happy Go Lucky event a couple of weeks back. But we have some new comedians. That one we don't have a corporate underwriter for, so we'll be charging $10 for the after party. So we'll have to see what level of engagement we get. It's the same situation where we'll let nonprofits basically send over the ticket buyer, and the nonprofit that sends the ticket buyer will get half of the money from the ticket. So we figured we would democratize events and let different nonprofits send people to the events as opposed to just doing one event, one nonprofit, which is typically how concerts or events are held in a physical world. Once you go virtual and there's no cap, we decided to try something new. So we'll see how this one works. I always prefer when we can get a corporate sponsor to sort of underwrite things. So it requires that the stars align in order for us to pull that off. So we'll do more of that in the future as well, perhaps in the Oregon area. So we'll keep you posted if we do that.
Please do. I know, because we're such a grassroots organization, the majority of our support comes through social media. And so, we've got a lot of dedicated people that really love Rosehaven. And so anytime we share something, you're always going to get at least a few people that want to engage. So we really appreciate you including us in this campaign.
Yeah, well, our theory is that it's a little easier to give if you get a little something back, even if it's a
Yeah.
few laughs, right? Because so much of the sort of hat passing is just, purely altruistic. And we figured the psychology is easier if it's not 100% altruistic, if there's a little bit of a quid pro quo. So that's why we're trying to do comedy events and music events. And we were inspired by uh, Demi and Richard Whites, who did the Quarantunes. If you've seen that in the news, they basically got together. He's an agent at William Morris Endeavor, I believe, and his 17-year-old daughter came to him and said, during the quarantines, can we do Quarantunes? And so they've done 42 of these concerts. And what they do is when they partner with a nonprofit, the nonprofit sends out the call to action to all of their bigger donors. And then they have this private concert with really top-notch performers. Because again, if once you build the momentum and you get the network rolling, it becomes possible to sort of pull that off. So they just broke 20 million that they raised last
Wow.
weekend. It's been in the news. And so we have a content partnership with Miss America, who's just gone through their own pivot from a branding perspective. They eliminated the swimsuit competition because both half of the board or a big portion of the board and sponsors thought it objectified women. So they eliminated that. And so now, they're out getting the word out. So we have both Miss America and Miss Teen America doing interviews for goodbuzz.org. And we have a interview scheduled between Demi, the daughter who came up with the Quarantunes idea, and Miss Teen America. So we'll see how that
Aw.
interview goes. But it'll be fun. The content doesn't generate that much revenue because we're essentially in the publishing business for that. But obviously, if we get some significant momentum, we can start to generate revenue from the eyeballs as well. So we're sort of balanced between events and content. So we'll see where it goes. It's an adventure, right? I'm basically an entrepreneur doing something in the nonprofit space versus the for-profit space this time.
Oh, well, that's awesome. I mean, we all certainly need more stuff to do these days. At least those of us that aren't working in the nonprofit world.
Right.
And that happiness piece really struck with me. I'm like, I'm gonna have to look that up as well because we all certainly need more of that. I think it's certainly been a tough year for pretty much everybody I know. And so just thank you for helping spread that joy. And comedy can be pretty magical. So
Yeah, well, I'll send you an invite to the comedy night, which is on the 18th, in case you want to attend. And then if you want to share it with your social network, obviously you can do that too. So we don't. We're trying to decide whether to offer like a monetarily challenged ticket price. The $10 was going to be our regular price, or $9.95. But we're debating internally whether we should sort of have a half price ticket where the person just says, well, $10 is too much for me. And then we
yeah.
just take them at their word. But we have to figure out how to build it into the interface. We'll see. It's going live shortly, so you'll see it soon.
Oh, well, good luck. I can definitely relate to that. We are getting ready to kick off our Mother's Day fundraiser, which is going to be, a virtual event this year. And it was last year as well. And we've always, had the model because we're serving people, experiencing poverty, that it never really felt right for us to do like, $100 ticket
Yeah,
dinner or anything like that. So we've always had a no cost event, with the option for folks to give if they feel inspired. And, it's always worked out really well for us. Some people walk in and can give 10 grand. Some people may not give at all, but they know about us and they
right.
talk about us. And I think that is more valuable than anything. The more people that know what you're doing, they'll talk to somebody that may have something you need or put you in their estate, or you just never know. It's such a small world when you really get down to it. So I wish you luck in all that.
Thanks. Well, we'll stay tuned and we'll keep in touch. Keep doing what you're doing. It sounds like you've got a full plate ahead of you with that move. So best of luck with that.
Thanks. We're going to need it.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
Liz. Bye bye.
Well, stay safe. Bye bye.